Hi everybody. Today we will be talking about how to help your cats deal with the summer heat. Now in the Pacific Northwest, we just got through the summer's first big heat wave, and boy was it ever sweltering. Record-breaking temperatures in June. It was brutal. So of course the question comes up, how do we help our pets deal with this brutal heat? Because we certainly have trouble dealing with it. Before I tell you to squish the like and subscribe buttons and to pet the bell notification icon, let me just suggest that maybe this is a good time for all of us to write to our congressman or member of parliament and to ask them what are they doing to help stop global warming and to reduce the use of fossil fuels in our economy. Because as long as we burn coal to make electricity, these kind of heat waves are going to keep getting worse, and life for everybody is going to keep getting worse. So I feel it's a really important topic to give a shout out to, because frankly speaking, as much as I love hot summer weather, I really am worried about the state of environment and the ecological collapse that is coming unless we really change the way we do things. With that said, let's talk about how we can help cats deal with hot weather. Cats are actually very well adapted to deal with hot weather. They're little hot climate desert creatures who are very good at conserving their body water. They get a lot of the water they get from food, so they don't need to drink that much if they have access to water-rich or moist food sources. A young healthy cat will tolerate high temperatures really well. They have a lot of adaptive mechanisms to help deal with temperatures, both physiological and behavioral. But there are some health conditions that do make it a little harder for them to deal with hot weather, and I'll talk about those towards the end of the video. But first we're going to talk about some basic things that I think are useful with every cat. The first and probably most important thing that we need to be aware of is that all animals have to have access to fresh water at all times. So make sure that the water dish is topped up. If you have an outdoor cat, make sure there's some water available outside so that if they can't get in, they can still get a good drink. And again, if you have an outdoor cat, make sure they also have a shady enclosure. Although again, with cats, that's really not much of an issue because they can definitely find some shade out there. But yeah, just always make sure that they have fresh water available. That's probably the most important thing. People often express concerns to me about whether their pet is drinking enough, and that's not really something you need to worry about because, you know, water homeostasis is a very well conserved mechanism in mammals. So all animals drink enough when they're thirsty. The issue we can run into is if there's not an available water source. So you got to make that water available to your cats at all times. Now, in addition to being expert loungers and being very well adapted to conserve body water and having very efficient kidneys that concentrate their urine when they drink, cats also have these lovely things up here that we call ears. They act like little radiant cooling systems that radiate heat because the blood vessels in them dilate when the cat is hot. And we can use this to help a cat stay cool by pointing a fan in their general direction, because airflow over these ears will help disperse the heat and help the cat stay cool. And if you're really feeling proactive, what you can do is put a little bit of just a few drops of water in the back of the ears on a really hot day under a fan or a breeze. They will help a cat disperse some heat and feel a little bit more comfortable. In a similar vein, you might have noticed that when cats are really hot, they lie down, they're all stretched out, tummy up, and if you're comfortable touching your cat's belly, which I know not everybody is, but if you are, what you can do is just gently wet the belly fur. Just again, dip your hand in a glass of water and just sprinkle a little bit of water on the fur in their tummy, wet it down a little bit, and again, the evaporation of the water from the fur will help keep them cool. Now, don't use a spray bottle. That'll be very alarming for the cat and very mean. So just a few drops of water onto their tummy from your hand will do, and it'll really help them with conductive cooling. Let's talk about food a little bit more. One thing you might notice is that when the weather is really hot, cats might eat less, or they might eat overnight and not touch the food much during the day. This is pretty normal, but remember how I said that cats get most of their water from food? You can help them stay hydrated by adding a little bit of water to their food. Now, you have to be a little bit careful not to alter the texture of the food too much, because that might cause some cats to be less enthusiastic about eating it. But adding just a little bit of water to their food will just increase the water content of their intake a little bit and just ensure that they stay really well hydrated. And this might not be that important for a young healthy cat, but if they have a health condition like kidney disease, for example, where dehydration is quite bad for them, this might be a worthwhile thing to do. And just a small note about wet food. While normally I say that it's okay to leave wet food out for 24 hours and you don't really need to worry about having wet food in the dish all day, if it's a really blazing hot day, it might not be great to leave wet food out all day long. So in those cases, what I suggest you do is you break up the cat's daily portion of wet food into two, give them half in the morning, put the other half in the fridge, and then in the middle of the day or whenever their dish looks kind of empty, you can put out the refrigerated portion. Again, some cats like cooler food on a hot day, and just in general, just make sure it's not sitting in a dish for too long in like really hot weather. Remember how I said that there are some health conditions that you do have to watch out for in hot weather? Well, let's talk about them for a minute. The diseases that you have to watch out for when the weather gets hot are ones that affect the cardiopulmonary system, like asthma and heart disease, and then anything where dehydration is critical, primarily kidney disease. Patients with asthma can sometimes struggle to breathe when the weather is really hot. So if you see your cat panting or open mouth breathing, it's always a bit of a red flag, but particularly if you have like an obese cat in hot weather who's open mouth breathing, that might be a sign of heat stroke or asthma attack. It might be a good time to check in with your veterinarian and see if they want to see them, because cats really should never pant. The exception maybe being like a kitten who runs around really like crazy and plays really hard. Sometimes they'll pant a little, and they'll sometimes do it when they're anxious in cars. But in general terms, you should not see cats doing open mouth breathing. So if your cat is doing open mouth breathing in hot weather, that's a pretty big red flag. And of course, if your cat has previously diagnosed heart disease and they start showing any signs of congestive heart failure, which of course your vet would have educated you on, you might want to do a check-in with a vet. And really just if you know your cat has heart disease, be a little bit hypervigilant for signs of anything going wrong, and it might be better take him in for a consult, because better safe than sorry, and at least vet clinics usually have an air conditioning. For cats who have kidney disease, you just want to make sure that they stay hydrated. So again, just making sure they have water available at all times. Maybe do that trick with adding a little bit of water to their food. Maybe bring it to them once in a while to make sure they get at least a few mouthfuls throughout the day. I'll sometimes bring Mr. Pyre to his bowl and let him have a little midday snack. He'll usually tuck in if I put it right in front of him. If you're doing subcutaneous fluids, then you might want to slightly increase your subcutaneous fluids, although you should talk to your veterinarians about that. Maybe just give them a call and say, hey, do you think it would be beneficial to increase subcu fluids for a few days just while it's really hot? If you're not doing subcutaneous fluids every day, you might want to consider giving a dose on the day that's really, really hot. So that's all the medical stuff you really have to watch out for. Most other health conditions aren't really affected by hot weather, but definitely cardiopulmonary stuff, asthma, heart disease, and kidney disease do require a little bit extra attention. That's probably all that needs to be said about helping cats deal with hot weather. They're pretty good about dealing with it on their own, but there are just a few things that we can do to make them a bit more comfortable and stave off some of the more common health problems associated with overheating and heat stroke. I hope you guys found this video helpful, and I'll see you next time.